Hey guys. Okay, so where did we leave off? All right. We left off at close relationships. Okay, so let's get started. Being attracted to people can be exhilarating or frustrating, depending on how the initial encounters develop. How important is a good relationship to you? Several years ago, researchers asked 300 students to weigh the importance of having a satisfying romantic relationship against the importance of other life goals, such as getting a good education, having a successful career, or contributing to a better society. They found that 73% said they would sacrifice most other goals before giving up a good relationship. That's pretty intense. So, intimate relationships often involve three basic components. Intimate relationships is a key term. I would highlight that. And also, it's three components. Three basic components. Feelings of attachment, love, and affection. Fulfillment of psychological needs, and interdependence between partners, each of whom has a meaningful influence on the other. Although people have many significant relationships in their lives that contain one or more of these components, social psychologists have concentrated their research on friends, dating partners, lovers, and married couples. Not all intimate relationships contain all three ingredients. A summer romance is emotionally intense, but in the fall, both partners resume their separate lives. An empty shell marriage revolves around coordinated daily activities, but emotional attachment is weak, and psychological needs go unmet. Clearly, relationships come in all different shapes and sizes. Some are sexual, others are not. Some involve partners of the same sex, while others involve partners of the opposite sex. A tender facilitated hookup, not Tinder, tender, might last a night, a week, or a month. Some partners commit to even a future life together. Feelings run the gamut of joyful to painful, from loving to hateful, with emotional intensity ranging all the way from mild to megawatt. So how do we advance from our first encounters to intimate relationships that warm our lives? Do we proceed gradually over time, in stages, step by step, or by leaps and bounds? According to one perspective, relationships progress in order through a series of stages. I would highlight this. So Bernard Bernstein's 1986 Stimulus Value Role Theory, or SVR theory, says there are three stages. The stimulus stage, in which attraction is sparked by external attributes such as physical appearance. I would highlight that definition as well. The value stage, where attachment is based on similarity of values and beliefs. And the role stage, where commitment is based on the enactment of such roles as husband and wife. All three factors are important throughout a relationship, but each one is said to be first and foremost during only one stage. So you need all three throughout your relationship, different varying levels. But the stimulus stage is important at the beginning. The value stage is important in the middle. The role stage is important at the end of building a relationship, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So in evaluating any stage theory, the critical issue is sequence. What we were just saying. Does the value stage always precede the role stage, or might a couple work out roles before exploring whether their values are compatible? Most researchers do not believe that intimate relationships progress through a fixed sequence of stages. That is interesting. I'm going to highlight that. I would highlight that too, because they're essentially saying these stages do not have to go in that specific order. Some people do it in their own order, and that's important. So, what then accounts for how they change? One common answer is rewards. I would highlight that as well. Love, like attraction, depends on the experience of positive emotions in the presence of a partner. Step by step, as the rewards pile up, love develops. Or, as rewards diminish, love erodes. In reward theories, quantity counts. But some would disagree. Think about your own relationships. Are your feelings for someone you love simply a more intense version of your feelings for someone you like? Is the love of a close friend the same as the love of a romantic partner? If not, then you appreciate that there are qualitative differences among relationships. The next section examines the reward-based approach to building a relationship. Then we consider differences among various types of relationships. I'm going to say one thing about this. Before I met my spouse, I had flirted and had all sorts of different, very superficial relationships with potential romantic partners. I wouldn't have called them prospective romantic partners. I would have called them people I had fun with. But I mean that because most people would have, at least to certain varying degrees, some sort of sexual relationship. So it wasn't just a friendship. It was something more for them. I wasn't sexually active before my husband, so that wasn't exactly how I could describe these people that I interacted with. So yeah, I would say that they were intimate, whether it was for a very brief moment, like making out with random people. I probably shouldn't be admitting this on the internet. Yeah, I may take this video down after this class is over. But anyway, yeah, from casual making out to months long involvement with people. And I have to say, from my personal experience, I noticed a huge difference between my interest in my past boyfriend, because I'd only ever had one other proper boyfriend before my husband. Between him and all the flirtations in between, I never experienced the difference between someone whom I intensely, I'm not even describing this correctly. They're essentially saying that some people see relationships as something that just progresses past the point of friendship, that you can take a friendship and just make it more intense, and that's a more intimate relationship. And from my experience, I tried doing that. I think it's the reason why my relationship with my only other boyfriend didn't work, because I respected him and cared about him deeply. I loved him as a friend. And I thought that if I really cared about him, that naturally those feelings might progress. I was at a stage where I wanted to make out and explore more physicality in relationships, and he was obviously interested in me, and I was obviously interested in doing that with him, particularly because I trusted him so much. But there is a distinct difference between someone you are genuinely attracted to, pulled in, drawn in, you cannot help it, without ever knowing them before. And just friendship that you tried to build into something, or lust, if that makes any sense. Because I also experienced that after my past boyfriend in certain situations. There was definitely very lustful moments for certain people that I interacted with. And it was different. It was genuinely different for me. So I have to say, if you've never experienced that, I'm not saying, just wait for the one or that one particular moment where you feel something different. But I do have to say from personal experience, I know that is not the case for me. That a more intimate relationship involves more than just deciding to make a relationship level up or from a friendship to something more, nor is it just love at first sight or lust at first sight. Okay, I'm going to get off this soapbox now because I'm not very eloquent tonight. Okay, so section 93A is the first section in close relationships, and they're going to talk about the intimate marketplace, what we consider tracking the gains and losses. So earlier we saw that people are initially attracted to others who provide them with direct or indirect rewards. But is the whole what's in it for me thing still important in a relationship that has blossomed and grown? Can an economic approach predict the future and longevity of a close relationship? So, social exchange theory, its definition, I would highlight it, is an economic model of human behavior according to which people are motivated by a desire to maximize profit and minimize loss in their social relationships, just as they are in business. Some people genuinely believe in this. And if that's your experience, it's valid. The basic premise is simple. Relationships that provide more rewards and fewer costs will be more satisfying and endure longer. Between intimates, the rewards, I would highlight that actually, that basic premise. Between intimates, the rewards include love, companionship, consolation in times of distress, sexual gratification, if the relationship is of this nature. And the costs include the work it takes to maintain the relationship, work through conflict, compromise, and sacrifice opportunities elsewhere. Okay, so I would bullet point these rewards and costs. So the development of an intimate relationship is clearly associated with the overall level of rewards and costs. Research has shown that dating couples who experience greater increases in rewards as their relationship progresses are more likely to stay together than those who experience small increases or declines. People do not worry about costs during the honeymoon phase of a relationship. After a few months, however, both rewards and costs start to contribute to levels of satisfaction, both in married couples and in couples who simply live together. They say here gay and lesbian couples who live together, but I would wager to say that gay and lesbian marriages fall into the first category and that hetero relationships who simply live together fill in that section as well. But they're specifically quoting certain studies, so keep that in mind. So rewards and costs do not arise in a psychological vacuum. All people bring to a relationship certain expectations about the balance sheet to which they are entitled. So John Thibault and Harold Kelly in 1959 coined the term comparison level. I would highlight this. as like a key term and also the actual study. It's to refer to this average expected outcome of relationships. So a person with high CL, they expect his or her relationships to be very rewarding. Someone with low CL doesn't. Situations that meet or exceed a person's expectations are more satisfying than those that fall short. So, I don't know, you could have somebody with a low CL who doesn't have very high expectations, that in general is a bad relationship, but they're satisfied with it because they don't expect much out of a relationship for whatever reason. So according to Thibault, I know I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry. Thibault? I'm going to stop trying. He and Kelly say, according to these two, a second kind of expectation is also important. They've coined it the comparison level for alternative. So it's called the CL alt. So you have CL people and CL alt people. This is to refer to people's expectations about what they would receive in an alternative situation. Okay, so it's not differing people. People differ on whether they're high CL or low CL, but CL alt is in reference to how they receive, or their expectations of what they would receive if they were in a different situation, in an alternative relationship. So if the rewards available elsewhere are believed to be high, then a person will be less committed to staying in the present relationship. If people perceive that they have few acceptable alternatives, then they tend to remain, even in an unsatisfying relationship that fails to meet expectations. So if you don't think you can do any better, then you'll settle for less. If you think that being with a person is too costly to your personal life goals or whatever, then you see that the costs are too high to be in that relationship and you leave. It makes sense. Of course, just as these alternatives can influence our commitment, a sense of commitment can influence our perception of the alternatives. If you've ever been in love, you probably were not cold, calculating, and altogether objective in your perceptions of the alternatives. In close and intimate relationships, we tend to act like lovers, not like scientists, and harbor positive illusions. I'm going to highlight that. I would also highlight the comparison level for alternatives and its definition because I have a feeling. I have that feeling. So ample research shows that people who are in love tend to see their partners and relationships through rose-colored glasses. People in love also tend to see other prospective partners as less appealing. A motivated perception that enables those in a committed relationship to resist temptation. This positive perspective on one's own partner relative to others is generally conducive to a happy and stable relationship, generally. A third element in the social exchange is investment. I would highlight that. Investment, and its definition. Investment is something a person puts into a relationship that he or she cannot recover if the relationship ends. It's not like the TV. You can't take it with you. If you don't like the way an intimate relationship is working out, you can pack your clothes, you can grab your laptop, you can drive away. But what about all the time you put in to trying to make the relationship last? All the effort, the emotional investment. What about all the romantic and career opportunities you sacrificed along the way? As you might expect, investments increase commitment. Because of those things that we can't take with us, we are more likely to stay. So over the years, research has shown that the building blocks of the social exchange framework, it's depicted in 913. I don't have to highlight that word. Oh, that's cool. Rewards minus cost minus comparison level. CL is your satisfaction. And then you subtract comparison level for alternatives, the CL alt, and you add investments, and that tells you how much commitment you have to the relationship, at least according to this model. The social exchange framework. Yeah, I'm going to highlight that. I've changed my mind. So it's depicted in figure 913, and as it's shown that the building blocks okay, sorry. So the social exchange framework is incorporated into Carol Rusbolt's investment model. So this is her investment model, but the social exchange framework is put into it. It can be used to determine the level of commitment partners bring to a relationship. I think the best thing to do is to put this figure in your notes and at least kind of memorize it at first glance. Plus, I'm a super visual person, so I always recommend doing that. Okay, so this model is important because commitment levels predict how long relationships will last. In studies of dating and married couples, the best adjusted ones are those in which each partner is committed and sees the other as mutually committed. I'm going to highlight that. The best adjusted ones. No, studies of dating and married people. I'm just going to start at the beginning and highlight all the way through to the end of that. Okay. I'm also going to highlight the sentence before it. Commitment levels predict how long a relationship will last. I think those are two pretty critical statements. So, particularly important for the durability of a relationship, people who are highly committed are more likely to forgive when their partners betray the relationship norm by flirting or lying or forgetting an anniversary or revealing a private and embarrassing story in public or having an affair. Unfortunately, there are times when commitment becomes a trap. A study of battered women shows that the investment model can be used to predict whether battered women will remain in an abusive relationship. I think I'm going to highlight, unfortunately, there are times when commitment becomes a trap. If you want to use battered women as an example, feel free. So the next section is the equity theory. We talked about the social exchange theory. Now we're going to talk about the equity theory. And it's got a definition, so I would highlight it. It's the theory that people are most satisfied with the relationship when the ratio between benefits and contributions is similar for both partners. I have some thoughts about that, but let's get through this first. So the equity theory provides a special version of how social exchange operates in interpersonal interactions. According to this theory, an equitable relationship is a matter of social justice. All over the world, people are most content when the ratio between what they get out of the relationship, benefits, and what they put into it, contributions, is similar for both partners. Thus, the basic equity formula is your benefits, your contributions, divided by your contributions should equal your partner's benefits over your partner's contributions. They've also got it modeled here. I'm just going to highlight the model. Equity is different from equality. According to equity theory, the balance is what counts. I'm going to highlight that. So, if one partner benefits more from a relationship but also makes a greater contribution, then the situation is equitable. In an inequitable relationship, the balance is disturbed. One partner, called the over-benefited, receives more benefits than he or she deserves on the basis of contributions made, while the other partner, aptly called the under-benefited, receives fewer benefits than deserved. Both over-benefit and under-benefit are unstable and often unhappy states. I'm going to highlight that. Both of them are unstable and often unhappy states. So, yeah, if they don't address it, I'm going to. So give me a second. Okay. As you might expect, under-benefited partners feel angry and resentful because they're giving more than their partner for the benefits that they receive. Whereas over-benefited partners feel guilty because they're profiting unfairly. In an ideal world, they're feeling guilty. So both kinds of inequity are associated with negative emotions in dating couples, married couples, and friendships among elderly widows. When it comes to satisfaction with a relationship, as you might expect, it is more unpleasant to feel under-benefited than over-benefited. People prefer to receive too much in life rather than too little, even if they'll feel bad about it. I'm so tempted. Okay, I'm going to have to say something. If you expect your relationship to always be equitable, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. There are seasons in life where your partner needs to take more, or you need to take more. Like when you have cancer and you are feeling sick all the time and your spouse has to shoulder the burden not only of the responsibilities that you both once shared, but also taking care of you, which can be very daunting, if I'm honest. Or, a season where your spouse is really trying to do better at their job or in their studies, and they need to buckle down and study harder, and they've got less time to invest in the relationship, but they still need emotional support, and you still care about them. You're not about to just be like, okay, bye, I'll see you after you're done with your studies. There are seasons in life where we need to take more, or where our partner needs to take more. And I think that it is okay to have those seasons. And yes, you're still going to be a little frustrated or whatever, but it's not the end of the world to be in a relationship that isn't 100% all the time equitable. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And in those kinds of situations, I don't think your partner should feel guilty. I'm sure they do a little bit. That's just human nature, but I don't think there should be any guilt or sense that your partner should feel guilty. I'm giving so much. I'm sacrificing. Oh, poor me. Feel better for me. This better swing back the other way around. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm going to move on before I get on a diatribe. So, if equity is so important, then any partner in a close relationship may at times feel a need to restore the balance sheet when he or she is feeling inferior, as if he or she is falling short or insecure. According to Sandra Murray and John Holmes in 2008, people in relationships naturally and unconsciously maintain something of a trust insurance system. I'm going to highlight that and their names just in case that's important. In which they keep a tally of costs and benefits in order to detect and then repair possible imbalances. Oh God, I hope not. That's a lot of accounting to do mentally. Murray and others in 2009 went on to demonstrate the process in a series of studies of newlyweds. In one of these studies, more than 200 married couples, averaging 27 years of age, were recruited from a local city clerk's office when they applied for their marriage license. each couple had been married for less than 6 months. All participants were given a personal digital assistant for keeping a daily diary by answering specific questions about their feelings, behaviors, and doubts about the marriage each night before going to bed. By tracking and statistically correlating each partner's answers over time, the researchers observed 3 steps of the trust insurance system in action. The first step was, on days after participants anxiously felt that they were not good enough for their partner, they were more likely to make sacrifices. For example, by doing the dishes or making lunch or picking up after their partner. I think I'm going to highlight on days after all the way to they were more likely to make sacrifices. The second one is these restorative actions were accompanied by lowered feelings of inferiority that same day. Highlight that too. And the third, on the next day, the partners who benefited from these actions expressed fewer doubts about the marriage. So Murray, I highlighted that sentence too. So Murray and her colleagues went on to propose an equilibrium model of relationship maintenance, which states that people are motivated to preserve important relationships, that declines in satisfaction and commitment motivate threat mitigating tactics. For example, the accommodating the partner rather than retaliating. And these tactics serve to restore levels of satisfaction and commitment. Sure, in relationships that you want to repair, but after time, people get tired, people get cranky, people start going, you know what, no, I don't want to forgive this time. And lose their patience. We all do. We all do. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to talk about types of relationships. Social exchange models focus on quantity. The more rewards equity, the better satisfaction, endurance. But is reward always necessary? What about qualitative difference among our relationships? Does more reward turn a casual acquaintance into friends, or friends into lovers, or these types of relationships or are these types of relationships inherently different from each other? There we go. So it breaks down types of relationships into 2 different types: exchange and communal relationships and secure and insecure attachment styles. So, according to Margaret Clark and others, people operate by a reward-based model when they are in exchange relationships. That's a key term highlighted. A relationship in which the participants expect and desire strict reciprocity for their interactions. These are characterized by an immediate tit-for-tat repayment of benefits. In these situations, people want costs to be quickly offset by compensation, leaving the balance at 0. But not all relationships fit this mold. Clark maintains that in communal relationships, partners respond to each other's needs and well-being over time and in different ways. This is also a key term highlighted. The relationship in which the participants expect and desire mutual responsiveness to each other's needs. So, in these communal relationships, partners respond to each other's needs and well-being over time in different ways without regard for whether they have given or received a benefit. So exchange relationships typically exist between strangers, casual acquaintances, long-term arrangements like business arrangements, such as business partnerships. In contrast, strong communal relationships are usually limited to close friends, romantic partners, family members. I would highlight these. Communal relationships are these 3, exchange relationship, are those three. So based on field work in West Africa, Alan Fiske in 1992 is convinced that this distinction works, Alan Fiske is convinced that this distinction applies to human interactions all over the world. But the cynics among us wonder, are communal relationships truly free of social exchange considerations? Can people really give without any desire to receive? Or do partners in a communal relationship follow a more subtle version of social exchange, assuming that the benefits will balance out in the long run? So Clark and Judson Mills in 1993 believe that true communal relationships do exist, that once a communal norm has been adopted in the relationship, regardless of how it started, the motivation to respond to the other's needs becomes automatic. So I think I'm going to highlight this Clark and Judson Mills study at the bottom. Okay, so now we talk about secure and insecure attachment styles. Another approach to understanding close relationships is provided by Philip Shaver, Cindy Hazan, and others who have theorized that just as infants display different kinds of attachment toward their parents, adults also exhibit specific learned attachment styles in their romantic relationships. For many years, child development psychologists had noticed that infants form intense, exclusive bonds with their primary caretakers. This first relationship is highly charged with emotion, and it emerges with regularity from one culture to the next. By observing the way babies react to both separations from and reunions with the primary caretaker, usually the mother, researchers also notice that babies have different attachment styles. Those with secure attachments cry in distress when the mother leaves, and then they beam with sheer delight when she returns. Those with insecure attachments show one of two patterns. Some babies are described as anxious. They cling and they cry when their mother leaves, but they greet her with anger or apathy on her return. And the other is more generally detached and avoidant, not reacting much on either occasion. Okay, so I'm going to highlight secure attachment, insecure attachment, and avoidant attachment. I know the definitions of them because I've taken Gen Psych 1 and Gen Psych 2. But if you want to make a note of this and you've never taken them before, by all means, use those examples. It'll make it easier to remember. They also have a table, Table 9.1, that kind of gives you a better understanding of them. I would do one, the other, or both, depending on how difficult this concept is to grasp. Okay, so how important is the first attachment? Does a secure and trusting bond in the first year of life set a foundation for close relationships later in life? John Bowlby, in 1988, a psychiatrist and influential theorist, has argued that there is a link, that infants form internal working models of attachment figures, and that these models guide their relationships later in life. I'm going to highlight that because John Bowlby is pretty big in psychology, and I have a feeling that he's going to make this a big deal in this class. Okay, so research shows that infants classified as securely attached are later more positive in their outlook towards others. Other research has shown that adult relationship patterns are predictable from parent and child relations in adolescence. Either way, whether a adult attachment style is rooted in infancy or traced from adolescence, the distinction among adults has proved to be a useful one. Read the descriptions in Table 9.1. So which do you think suits you best? Hassan and Shaver in 1987 presented this task initially as a love quiz that appeared in a Denver newspaper and then in a study of college students. As shown in the table, the distribution of responses was similar to the two samples, and later in a nationwide sample of 8,000 adults. In addition, the researchers found that people who have a secure attachment style report having satisfying relationships that are happy, friendly, based on mutual trust, and enduring. Cognitively, they see people as good-hearted, and they believe in romantic love. In contrast, avoidant lovers fear intimacy, believe that romantic love is doomed to fail, and anxious lovers report a love life full of emotional highs and lows, obsessive preoccupation, a greater willingness than others to make long-term commitments, and extreme sexual attachment and attraction and jealousy. Oh my goodness. That's some extra right there. Okay, so I'm going to take that in addition all the way to the end of this paragraph, and I'm going to rephrase it in bullet points in my notes because I think having those examples will be really helpful. Okay, so to some extent, our attachment styles can be seen in our everyday behavior. For example, Jeffrey Simpson and others in 1996 videotaped dating couples as they tried to resolve various conflicts and then showed the tapes to outside observers. I need to make a note of this because I happen to be doing a research proposal for a different class, and this is very important to my research proposal. Okay, sorry. All right. They found that men, I would highlight it as well if I'm being honest. But if you don't want to, that's fine. I just think this study is important, so I would at least put the little study sign next to it. They found that men classified from a questionnaire as having insecure avoidant attachment style were the least warm and supportive, and that women with insecure anxious style were the most upset and negative in their behavior. There is also reason to believe that people's attachment styles influence their psychological reactions in a relationship conflict. I'm going to highlight that as well. In one study, Sally Powers and her colleagues in 2006 brought 124 college-age dating couples into the laboratory to discuss a heated conflict they'd been having. Before and after this conflict negotiation task, the researchers took saliva samples from all participants to measure levels of cortisol, a stress hormone. The results showed that boyfriends and girlfriends who were insecurely attached exhibited more psychological stress in response to the conflict task than did those who were securely attached. What about the future? Does the attachment style you endorse today foretell relational outcomes tomorrow? On this question, the evidence is mixed. People who are secure do tend to have more lasting relationships, but the prognosis for those classified as insecure, it's harder to predict, with the results less consistent. All right, I'm going to highlight people who are secure tend to have lasting relationships, but insecure is harder to predict with results less consistent. Just those two pieces. So what's important to realize is that although styles of attachment are modestly stable over time, perhaps as holdovers from infancy and childhood, they are not fixed or set in stone. Lee Kirkpatrick and Cindy Hassan in 1994 tracked down participants from a study that had taken place 4 years earlier and found that 30% had different attachment styles. Adult development plays a key role in this regard. In a massive internet survey of 91,000 men and women from 18 all the way to 64 years old, from 81 countries all over the world, William Kopic and Robin Edelstein in 2014 discovered that there is a universal shift in attachment styles over the lifespan, specifically for both men and women and across genders and cultures. Attachment anxiety was highest among young adults, but declined thereafter. Attachment avoidance was lowest among young adults, but it peaked at middle age. In keeping with the central theme of social psychology, that we are profoundly shaped by the situations and roles we're in, research suggests that people may continuously revise their own attachment styles in response to new relationships and new experiences. I like that. Research suggests. Yeah. I'm also going to make a specific point that attachment anxiety was highest among young adults, and attachment avoidance was lowest among young adults and peaked at middle age. So, this next section is called How Do I Love Thee? Counting the Ways. And it's from a poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning that says, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when seeking out of being. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop. I had to memorize it and it stuck in my brain and I can't use it for anything else, but at least, yeah. Okay. Point. Section 93C. The poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning asked, how do I love thee? And then went on to count the ways. And there are many. When college students were asked to list all kinds of love that came to mind, they produced 216 entries, such as friendship, parental, brotherly, sisterly, romantic, sexual, spiritual, obsessive, possessive, and puppy love. Focusing on the ups and downs and vagaries of romantic love, anthropologist Helen Fisher in 2015 reports on the basis of a large national survey of 25,000 singles in America that over 54% of American singles believe in love at first sight. That 58% of men and 50% of women said they have had friends with benefits, or FWBs. And 28% have had an FWB turn into a long-term partnership. 89% believe you can stay married to the same person forever. 36% said they wanted a prenuptial agreement, and 33% believe it's okay to leave a satisfactory marriage if you're no longer passionately in love. That's a lot of variety in perspective. So over the years, various schemes for classifying types of love have been proposed. From ancient writings, sociologist John Allen Lee in 1988 identified 3 primary love styles. He defined them as eros, or eros, which is erotic love, ludus, which is game playing or uncommitted love, and storge, which is friendship love. As with primary colors, Lee theorized that these 3 styles can be blended together to form new secondary types of love, like mania, which is demanding and possessive love, pragma, which is pragmatic love, and agape, which is other-oriented or altruistic love. I'm going to highlight all of this. John Allen Lee, 3 primary love styles, and then secondary types of love such as mania, pragma, and agape, mania, whatever. So more recently, Tim Lomas in 2018 used internet sources to gather 619 words from various languages that have no counterpart in English and pertain to love. By grouping these words, he tentatively identified 14 flavors of love, such as love of objects, of places, of experiences, such as love of caring and affection, as for family and friends, romantic love characterized by intense desire, or transcendent forms of love, as seen in love of a higher being or of nature. Another popular taxonomy is derived from Robert Sternberg's 1986 triangular theory of love. It's a key term highlighted. It's a theory proposing that love has three basic components: intimacy, passion, commitment, and that they can be combined to make 8 subtypes. So according to Sternberg, there's 8 basic subtypes of love, 7 different forms, and an 8th combination that results in the absence of love. The combination can thus be viewed as the vertices of a triangle. If you look at figure 914, it's going to be a better indication than I could ever explain in words or anyone else. It's just easier to see it than to describe it. I would pull it up right now if you don't have the book on you, because it is pretty critical. Okay, so the components and sample items used to measure each ones are described below. So the triangle has 3 points. Up at the top, they have intimacy. It's the emotional component, which involves liking or feeling of closeness. At the bottom corner is passion. It's the motivation component that contains drives that trigger attraction and romance and sexual desire. And then the third point is commitment. It's the cognitive component, and it reflects the decision to make long-term commitments to a loved partner, a beloved partner. So research provides some support for this tri-component model of love. In one study, Arthur Aaron and Laurie Westbay in 1996 asked people to rate 68 prototypical features of love and found that all the various features fell into these 3 categories. Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of examples here, like gazing at each other, euphoria, butterflies in the stomach, feeling free to talk about anything, supportive, understanding, devotion, putting others first, long-lasting. You can guess which ones each of those examples are for. But if you want to make a note of those, feel free as examples of each one. I've memorized this already, so I'm not going to highlight them, but I think you absolutely should, especially the intimacy, passion, and commitment definitions. But anyway, in a second study, Sternberg in 1997 asked people to state what they see as important in different kinds of relationships and found that the results were consistent with the theory. For example, an ideal lover scored high in all 3 components. Friend scored high on intimacy and commitment, but low in passion. A sibling scored high on commitment, but low on intimacy and passion. In light of theories involving infant attachment styles, colors, triangles, and other love classification schemes that have been proposed over the years, one wonders, how many types of love are there really? It's hard to tell, but there are 2 basic types that are built into all models: liking, the type of feeling you have for a platonic friend, and loving, the kind of feeling you would have for a romantic partner. I would highlight that. 2 basic types in all models are platonic and romantic. That whole to the end of the sentence. So according to Zick Rubin in 1973, liking and loving are distinct reactions in intimate relationships. There is some question, however, about how sharp the difference is. Kenneth Dion and Karen Dion in 1976, question casual daters, exclusive daters, engaged couples, and married couples, all four of those. Although the casual daters reported more liking than loving, liking and loving did not differ for those in the more committed dating relationships. A two-pronged distinction, Elaine Hatfield in 1988 and her colleagues I see. So this two-pronged distinction that Elaine Hatfield and her colleagues have made are saying that highlight in even sharper contrast passionate and companionate love. So according to Hatfield, passionate love is an emotionally intense and often erotic state of absorption in another. That's a key term highlighted. Whereas companionate love is slow building, secure, trusting, and stable partnership, similar to what Rubin called liking. So here's a different perspective on things, defining things slightly differently. I would highlight those two key terms and memorize. So passionate love. Passionate love is an intense, sometimes fast to develop, emotional, heart-thumping state of absorption in another person. From thrilling highs to agonizing lows, it is the bittersweet stuff of romance, paperbacks, popular in music, poems, and soap operas. What is passionate love and where does it come from? According to Ellen Burscheid and Elaine Walster Hatfield, the key to understanding passionate love is to recognize that it is an emotion that can be analyzed like any other emotion. Drawing on Schachter's 1964 two-factor theory of emotion that we described in Chapter 3, they theorize that passionate love is fueled by two ingredients. One, a heightened state of physiological arousal, and two, the belief that this arousal was triggered by the beloved person. Sometimes the arousal-love connection is obvious, as when a person feels a surge of sexual desire at the sight of a romantic partner. At other times, however, the symptoms of arousal, such as a pounding heart, sweaty palms, and weak knees, can be hard to interpret. All right, I would highlight sometimes it's obvious, other times it's hard to interpret. When you're in the company of an attractive person, these symptoms may be attributed or misattributed to passionate love. Dolph Zillman in 1984 called the process excitation transfer. It's a key term, I would highlight it. It's the process whereby arousal is caused by one stimulus and is added to arousal from a second stimulus, and the combined arousal is attributed to the second stimulus. So according to Zillman, arousal triggered by one stimulus can be transferred or added to the arousal of a second one, and that this combined arousal is then perceived to be caused only by the second. So Donald Dutton and Arthur Aaron in 2074 first tested this provocative hypothesis in a field study that took place on two bridges above British Columbia's Capilano River. One was a narrow, wobbly suspension bridge that was 450 feet long and 5 feet wide with a low handrail. Just to give you an idea, your sidewalk in front of your house is about 5 feet. That's crazy. Especially with the low handrail. It sways 230 feet above rocky rapids. Nightmare for anyone the least bit afraid of heights. The other bridge was wide and sturdy and only 10 feet from the ground. Whenever an unaccompanied young man walked across one of these bridges, he was met by an attractive young woman who introduced herself as a research assistant and asked him to fill out a brief questionnaire. She gave her phone number in case he wanted to know more information about the project. As predicted, men who crossed the scary bridge were later more likely to call her than those who crossed the stable bridge. In a study of love at first sight, or love at first fright, that took place in 2 amusement parks, Cindy Meston and Penny Froelich in 2003 similarly found that men and women who were not with a romantic partner rated a photographed person of the opposite sex as more attractive right after they rode on a roller coaster than they did before they began the ride. Perhaps terror can fan the hot flames of romance. Yeah, I'm going to make a little note of those studies because they all pretty much say the same thing about excitation transfer. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a relief to be with someone when we're in distress. To rule out this possibility, that relief, rather than arousal, is what fuels attraction. Gregory White and his colleagues in 1981 had to create arousal without distress. How? A little exercise can do it. Male participants ran in place for either 2 minutes or 15 seconds and then saw a videotape of a woman they expected to meet. The woman had been made up to look physically attractive or unattractive. After watching the video, participants rated her appearance. The result? Those who exercised for 2 minutes as opposed to only 15 seconds saw the physically attractive woman as even more attractive and the unattractive woman as less attractive. This study and others like it showed that arousal, even without distress, intensifies emotional reactions, positive or negative. Arousal, even without distress, intensifies emotional reaction. That's what I'm going to highlight from that. The implication of this research that our passions are at the mercy of bridges, roller coasters, exercise, and anything else that causes the heart to race is intriguing. It is certainly consistent with the common observation that people are vulnerable to falling in love when their lives are turbulent. But does the effect occur, as theorized, because people misattribute their arousal to a person that they have just met? Yes and no. Based on their review of 33 experiments, Craig Foster and others in 1998 confirmed that the arousal attraction effect does exist. They also found, however, that the effect occurs even when people know the actual source of their arousal. In other words, even without misattribution. According to these investigators, just being aroused, even if we know why, facilitates whatever is the most natural response. If the person we meet is good looking and have the right sex, we become more attracted. If the person is not good looking or is of the wrong sex, we become less attracted. No thought is required. The response is automatic. I'm going to highlight that. And the sentence that says, even when people know the actual source of their arousal, even without misattribution. So, it is now clear that passionate love is erotic and highly sexualized, an intense state that seems like a natural addiction. In the book titled Lust, What We Know About Human Sexual Desire. I don't know why I'm reading it that way, guys. I'm sorry. Pamela Reagan and Ellen Burscheid in 1999 presented compelling evidence for the proposition that intense sexual desire and excitement are a vital part of passionate love. In this regard, they note that loving is different from being in love. To illustrate, Burscheid and Myers in 1996 asked college men and women to make three lists: people they loved, people they were in love with, and people they were sexually attracted to. As it turns out, only 2% of those in the love category also appeared in the sex list. Yet, among those in the love category, the overlap with sex was 85%. And when Reagan and her colleagues in 1998 asked people to list the characteristics of romantic love, 2/3 cited sexual desire, more than the number who put happiness, communication, loyalty, sharing, or commitment. I'm going to put a little sign in this whole section because I think this book is going to become pretty important later. So, romantic ideals notwithstanding, many people doubt the staying power of passionate love. Does the fire within a relationship burn hot and bright over time, or is it just passing infatuation? Comparisons of couples at different stages of their relationship and longitudinal studies that measure changes in the same couples over time have suggested that intense, sexual, passionate love does tend to diminish somewhat over time. Yet this decline is not clearly defined or inevitable. Blanca Acevedo and Arthur Aaron in 2009 meta-analyzed past survey research and asked couples who had been together for varying lengths of times questions about passionate love. They found that although the initial obsessional aspect of passionate love clearly diminishes in long-term relationships, you know, that whole, I find it difficult to concentrate on work because my thoughts of my partner occupy my mind. I'm sorry, I don't know why I went telenovela on that one, but I felt like that was the only way you could read that. So even though that diminishes in long-term relationships, there is a romantic aspect that often endures. I would rather be with my partner than with anyone else. Acevedo and others in 2012 next studied men and women who were married an average of 21 years. I'm going to highlight that even though obsessional aspects of passionate love diminish, romantic aspects often endure. Yeah, I think that's going to be important. So yes, they studied men and women who were married an average of 21 years and who reported long-term intense romantic love for their partners. They had these participants undergo fMRI while viewing facial images of their partners. The scans revealed activity in regions of the brain specific to their partner, namely in dopamine-rich reward areas and areas that are typically activated by maternal attachment. More research is needed, but these results support the self-reported data that for some people, intense love for their long-term partner may last for long periods of time. I'm going to get to companionate love next time. We're already over an hour, so tomorrow I'm just going to wrap up companionate love. I think it'll be good to put a little break between passionate and companionate. And then we'll finish chapter 9. Yay! Oh, they have a picture of 50 Shades of Grey on here. That'll be interesting. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow.